Hello, this is Faith at Faith and Books, and happy St. Lucy's Day. Today is December 13th. It's St. Lucia or Lucia's Day, and in Sweden, they really celebrate this day. And if you've ever read the American Girl books, this particular one, Kirsten, who is settling in the West, I guess in the Dakotas, maybe? Trying to remember. Anyway, this is a great series of book. There's all sorts of topics. The first one was set in Williamsburg. What was her name? Felicity. That was the very first one. Anyway, there's a whole slew of them now. And they're all tied to the American Girl dolls, but they're a wonderful introduction to history. And this one is featuring Kirsten doing the traditional things for St. Lucy's Day. Anyway, so the reason why I think that in Sweden they love St. Lucy's Day is because it comes at a time when there's not as much sunlight. There are very long nights. We're only a few days away from the longest night of the year. And of course it gets really dark up there. And Lucy comes from the Latin word for light. So candles are sort of the thing that you do. It always makes me nervous. They have that wreath with candles. That looks a little dangerous. But anyway, so I'm using that as a way to segue into what I've been talking about, what I've been reading this week. Instead of really reading books, I have been indulging in reading seed catalogues. Yes, so I'm a frustrated gardener. I've done a little bit off and on over the years. The more I studied environmentalism, the more I wanted to garden. And so a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we planted some cherry trees in our backyard. But then last year, we hired gardeners because we're getting older and I don't have much experience with gardening. So we hired these garden designers, and they actually came in and did the planting. We got a big garden. We got a permaculture type garden put into our yard. And so we planted fruit trees and blueberry bushes and strawberry plants and all kinds of interesting plants, pollinators, nut trees, all sorts of things. So permaculture, I read about it. I first started really exploring it a couple of years ago when I read the book Gaia's Garden, which I'll link below. And it basically, permaculture is applying ecological principles to gardening, to agriculture or horticulture. And it started in the 70s in Australia, and it's sort of taken off, and now it's a global thing. But it studies the way nature produces the most, and what this, I can't remember the name of the guy who started it. It was a couple guys in Australia. But anyway, they noticed that the forest edge was the most productive because you had things growing on the ground, and then you had bushes that were producing things, and then you had lower, smaller trees producing something, and then the higher trees. So the way they do it is they sort of plant herbs at the bottom and things like strawberry plants and that sort of thing, and then bushes that produce something, and then fruit trees, and then nut trees. And so every layer is producing some sort of fruit or some sort of food that you can eat. So that's sort of the really, really simplified version of what permaculture is. And it also really looks at the little microclimates that you might have in whatever your gardening space is, and to take advantage of that and to figure out how the water flows over the land, or how best to make water flow over the land, and that sort of thing. It's very interesting. Gaia's Garden is a really good introduction to that. Anyways, I've just been looking at my seed catalogs, which are really wonderful to look through at this time of the year when it's so dark and gloomy out. This one is called So True Seed, and it's based out of Asheville, North Carolina. So I'd like to get things that are pretty local to me, because that's one thing about gardening, is it needs to be local, because your climate is just so particular, and what you can grow, and your what you can grow at certain times of the year and that sort of thing, or it's very particular to your particular geographical location. So this is, I don't even know how I got this catalog, but anyways, I love the art on the cover of it. So what was there? Was there something interesting that I wanted to show you? Oh yeah, I like this. Thou shalt save seeds, which is from Latvia, which happens to be where my husband comes from. Now, his husband's family comes from. Now, I'm not up to saving seeds because I'm pretty much just a beginner. But I am having so much fun looking through these catalogs and daydreaming about what I'm going to get. This one is actually really close to me. It's just a couple of hours south of me in Mineral, Virginia, sort of between Charlottesville and Richmond. It's Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, Saving the Past for the Future. And this one's really interesting. It's got some, like I really want this book, Made Easy, Perfect for Beginning Gardeners, Grow Your Own Food. So what I want to do eventually is grow most or a lot of, as much food as I can for the family, and then learn how to preserve it. Because if you read about all the waste and the environmental destruction that goes on with these huge monocultural crops that are grown with tons of pesticides and herbicides and GMO seeds, and then, it's gonna go 10 times. Oh dear. I hope you can hear me. Anyway, and then there's so much waste going on in the field, then it has to get transported, and that's a lot of waste and a lot of carbon in the air, and then you have to refrigerate it and store it, and then you sell it. There's so much waste that goes on at the level of the grocery store, and then people bring it home, and it winds up getting wasted in the fridge, and hardly anyone composts. So then they throw it in the trash, and it's releasing methane in the landfill. So it's just our whole agricultural food system is just really bad for the planet, and we're very, very dependent on it. And so people are trying to be innovative and grow more things locally, and figure out how to be more efficient and more earth-friendly in the way they grow things. So I try to buy local. I try to eat seasonally, and I want to get better at growing it myself and preserving, which I'm really, really a beginner, and I'm quite intimidated by a lot of this stuff. Anyway, that was one book that I wanted. This looks really interesting. It says Farming While Black, because I'm here in Virginia, the home of the Confederacy. And one of the things that this catalog suggests is growing your own cotton and then trying to pick it, and so that you can actually experience what a horrible job that was. I thought that was pretty interesting. And they talk also about growing things you would never think of growing, like rice, growing your own rice, wheat. I mean, I don't know how you would do it unless you had acreage, which I do not have. But anyway, this is a really interesting catalog to go through, really interesting. And all these seeds they're all heirloom seeds that have been preserved and are good for this growing area. So that's why this is such a helpful catalog. And then they have a Heritage Harvest Festival at Monticello in September, which I would love to go to. And then I got really excited because, and you can see I put on all these markers, I decided that for this coming year I'm going to buy from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, which is in Mansfield, Missouri, which also happens to be where Laura Ingalls Wilder's home with Almanzo, what's it called, Rocky Ridge, is. So there's the museum there for her, and I would love to take a road trip and go to their spring planting festival and then visit Laura Ingalls Wilder's home. That would be really neat. But anyway, this guy who started this kind of famous because he really kind of launched the heirloom seed, movement. where these families that have handed down these seeds for generations started to, go public with it and try to exchange in reaction to corporations like Monsanto, who are trying to control our food supply through seeds, through patenting seeds and then not sharing the seeds. You can't reuse them. You have to. So that's kind of scary. Anyway, I'm really excited about ordering from Baker Creek, even though it's Missouri and not Virginia. I'm still going to use some seeds from this one, but I decided to just try this catalog this time because I just heard so much about them. So I'm excited to try it. So it's fun. It's just so nice to go through and think about what you're going to plant. This in 2020, I really want to, my big goal is to become a better gardener and a better food preserver. Speaking of which, this is a book I have on the traditional ways of preserving food, which isn't canning, but it's using salt and oil and fat and drying and that sort of thing to preserve. And I got this book. Where did I get it? But it's published by Chelsea Green Publishing, which is a wonderful publishing company that deals with regenerative agriculture and homesteading and farming and preserving food and all those good things. So it gets a little bit extreme, I think, with the health things. I think I'm a little bit more conventional about health. I'm not that into homeopathy and that sort of stuff. But the other things that they publish are really, really interesting. So I'm going to link to them as well, because if you want to peruse their online catalog, you might find interesting books to read. So anyway, this is just my gardening edition of my vlog here on this very gloomy December St. Lucy's Day. Bye-bye.